Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you, this time talking episodes 5 and 6 of Season 3 of Legends of Tomorrow, Return of the Mack, and Helen Hunt, respectively. And all in all, I wasn't too keen on these episodes. I mean, they were okay. And there was definitely some stuff in there that I thought was really good, but it just didn't feel really super strong to me. Um, to get into things, my biggest problem is that while I was watching this episode, I sort of realized that some of the characters in the show, particularly like Mick and Nate, have really just devolved in a lot of ways. Um, Nate basically is there to sort of to be the comic relief guy, the sort of basically a doofus in a lot of ways. He was originally presented as somewhat geeky but smart historian, somebody with a knowledge of history who you'd think would be really kind of very helpful in the situation that the legends are in. But now it's sort of like sort of devolved into let's have Nate act like a goofball for no particularly good reason. And it's just sort of like, really, that like this whole situation where it's like he hasn't taken a shower in a week. You'd think somebody would have noticed and said something about that earlier. And it's just sort of like so hard to take Nate seriously anymore. It's sort of like, how dumb is this guy? And then there's the whole situation with Mick where, he was never presented as the most educated guy around, but he was somebody who did have, a great deal of street smarts. He was somebody who knew how to deal with unsavory people. And now it's just sort of like Mick likes violence. Mick likes alcohol. Mick is kind of dumb, but he has this more hidden side where, like, here, he's like a big fan of Passion of the Christ here. We see him reading Dracula, and then he also is like, yeah, I always carry a stake. I've always carried around with a stake with me ever since I was a kid because I've always wanted to kill a vampire since I was a kid. It's just like, what the hell? I mean, seriously? Just drinking coffee today, by the way. So yeah, I'm definitely getting a little exasperated with with Nate as a character. It's just like, God, can this guy do something that isn't dumb? I mean, he does, you know, steal up and tries to bring something to the table during the fight, but it's just, all right. Well, nothing particular to say about Ray this episode. Um, Amaya finally finding out what's going on with her granddaughter and her reaction to that. That was nicely done. And I did like that she had that moment with Ray where Ray kind of was like, look, I kind of need to tell you what's going on here. And she's like, okay, I already know. And she does point out it's better that I don't know too much about the future. And that was good. I mean, this is something that did need to happen. And her talking about her conversation with her ancestors, where you have to imagine that in her mind, she's kind of wondering, maybe I can't snap my granddaughter out of this, dark path that she's obviously gone down. And she has to be wondering, I've got this one daughter who's out there being the hero, that sort of person that I would want it to be. And here, one of my own granddaughters is also one of my enemies. What went wrong with my family? And was there anything I could have done to prevent this? Was I even alive to prevent any of this in the world these girls came from? I mean, all those things have to really be going around in her head. Zari had some nice stuff this episode. The guilt over running away from the attack that killed her family and her parents and her brother. That was nice. I mean, of course, it was immensely stupid for her to just hand her necklace over to an obviously shady person. But okay, fine, fine. The payoff for that was ultimately worth it. And I definitely liked what they did with her in Helen Hunt. Yeah, nice little nod to the actress there, with her taking Helen to Themyscira. I I know I know a lot of people were just really pumped about that. You know, DC taking away a lot of those restrictions on making nods to the major characters has done, I think, a lot to really bring some extra energy to these shows. You know, we were finally able to do Superman on Supergirl. I mean, the other week they just mentioned they mentioned Bruce Wayne on Arrow, and here we get this just humongous Wonder Woman reference. I mean, there's no doubt about it now. There is going to be Wonder Woman in the Arrowverse at some point. Now, I don't think anybody ever believed otherwise, but here, just flat out, we go to Themyscira. We see it is just miles beyond anything I could have ever hoped for. Although I did at one point wonder if they might not actually bring in one of like the Amazons as a character, because there have been stories where Amazons from Themyscira have gone rogue, gone out into man's world and started raising hell. Something like that would have been, I think, a really great idea to play around with at some point. But I guess we'll have to see. Anyway, so Return of the Mack had a few things, like Victor Garber meeting one of his ancestors is all well and good, but he doesn't seem to have any particular reaction to, oh my god, one of my ancestors is an evil person. He's just like, wow, he looks exactly like me. It's like, seriously, dude, shouldn't you be a little more concerned about this? I mean, you have an ancestor who looks just like you, who's a member of an evil cult. You know, isn't that something you have some emotional feelings about rather than just, oh wow, he and I look so much alike? Well, I look almost exactly like my dad, and yeah, it's kind of interesting looking at old pictures of him, and it's sort of like, wow, so that's what I might have been wearing if I'd been alive back in the 60s. And in all fairness, my dad was looking pretty styling back in 1964. I mean, he was. No, wait, no, that was 1966, that picture. I mean, well, about as stylish as somebody who was 13 years old could look, I suppose. Oh, no, no. Oh, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I'm just doing some math in my head. But anyway. The whole thing with Return of the Mack, I was really not too impressed with this episode until the Damien Dark reveal. Although the guest appearance by Curtis was definitely a nice little nod, but I was just like, oh, now it's interesting. I mean, Damien Dark was a great villain on Arrow. He was a great villain in season 2, and bringing him back, well, you know, John Barrowman's got other things going on. So we won't be seeing him in the Arrowverse again anytime soon, although I don't think we should rule out, you know, never seeing Malcolm again in some shape or form. Obviously, they're going to bring Reverse Flash back at some point, but they're going to want to do that on Flash. So bringing back Damien Dark makes sense. You know, nothing against Casper Crump or anything, but people were a little bit lukewarm on Vandal Savage. And frankly, just given his connection to Sarah, Damien is the person that makes the most sense. There's some people out there who are saying, like, well, they brought Damien Dark back, so now that means Laurel's death was pointless. Well, no. I mean, Laurel is still dead. No one can go and, you know, use magic or time travel to bring her back. That doesn't change. Here, you know, Damien Dark is back. I mean, this is really just rubbing salt in that wound. I mean, the heroes thought, like, okay, at least we took out Damien Dark. At least we got some justice for Laurel. And now this new bad guy, through his machinations, has robbed them of that. So it's just making the situation even worse. Not only do we have this extremely dangerous guy who killed this person we loved, who we thought had at least paid for his crimes, and is now back and is as dangerous as ever, we've got somebody backing him who's even more dangerous. So this is, I just do not understand this logic people are throwing out there, that this is somehow making Laurel's death pointless. her death is still extremely relevant to what's going on with multiple characters, Quentin, Sarah, and Oliver. And, never mind the fact that, Black Siren is running around on Arrow, who is a different character, but again, Laurel's presence and her memory are extremely important. And you have to figure Oliver arranged for that Black Canary statue to be fixed pretty quick once he became mayor. So yeah, I don't understand this thinking at all. And, man, Neil McCullough is such a great actor. I mean, and you can tell he just loves the hell out of playing a character like Damien Dark. I mean, this is a man who is just having a blast playing this villain, and you can tell. And, and I really love Dark. I mean, he is just so easy to hate, and yet he is so massively entertaining. I mean, he does really work well as a serious, threatening villain and as a comedic character. I mean, he comes back from the dead, and his first thing he says is, "Where's my watch?" And then he goes and kills all these time agents while they play Return of the Mack. I mean, that's glorious. And in the next episode, where he sort of makes that offer to Sarah of, look, just, F off back to 2017 and I won't kill you and your little friends. Well, I do like how they point out that it's like, yeah, even if we take Damien Dark up on his offer, he'll just come after us one by one and take us out. And yes, that's exactly what Damien Dark would do. He's just not going to let these guys walk away peacefully. And I do like how they showed that Dark is a sneaky bastard, but that they did reiterate one of his big weaknesses is that he's sort of let his physical training as a member, his physical League of Assassins training go to seed a little bit. I mean, he's still no slouch, but both Oliver and Sarah have now officially defeated him in personal combat. And of course, he's still got that massive, massive ego. So Dark's back. He still remembers everything, but do you really think he's learned much of anything from his experiences? Guys like that chalk up losses as flukes and just continue on about their merry way. They might have learned one or two tricks, but their core personality just won't change. It's just too ingrained. Now let's see, who else do we need to talk about? Yes, Rip. Now, this episode really crystallized something for Rip. These episodes really crystallized something for me about Rip, and that Rip is a zealot. He was very fanatic. When he latches onto something, he goes at it whole hog, and there is nothing or no one that he will not manipulate, use, or sacrifice to achieve his goal. In season 1, that was save his wife and son from Vandal Savage. And he lied and manipulated the team to do that. Season 2, it's, let's take down the Legion of Doom. Okay, well, Rip does more than a few very bastard things in that season. And here this season, it's take down Mollis. And, he basically blows off the Legend's concerns, gets all these time agent kills, and when Sarah's like, hey, a bunch of your people just got killed by Damien Dark, he's just like, well, they knew what they signed up for. And it's pointed out that, hey, you lied to and betrayed us yet again. And he's like, well, yes, I did, but I did it for a good reason. You have to help me anyway. And the Legends aren't having it. And I like how even the Time Bureau is just like, yeah, sorry, it doesn't matter that you're our founder. The rules that you set up apply to you too. And drag him off. And they do sort of get a bit of a free pass from the Tide Agency. Just like, you know what, you're a bunch of clowns. Go do whatever. I mean, never mind the fact that the clowns took down the director and founder of your agency. Although, in all fairness, these clowns have completely made a mess of things on multiple occasions in the past and do frequently act like complete idiots. So, unsavory personality or not, Agent Sharp is not entirely wrong in her assessment of the team. Let's see. yeah, one thing that did kind of bother me about the Helen Hunt episode is one, Sarah's bisexual, so shouldn't Helen have had some sort of effect on her? And when she and Amaya and Zari go to save Helen from the movie producer's house, they have that moment where it's like, do you think they say, do you think men have gotten any smarter in the last 2,000 years? Nah. That's sort of like, that sort of men are dumb, tee hee, yay, feminism kind of attitude has always bothered me. Because, like, look, I mean, okay, to be completely fair, yes, when it comes to pretty women, men can be pretty darn dumb. I mean, I'm a guy, I'm the first to admit that, but still, I don't really understand exactly how basically like saying bad stuff about men is empowering to women. I mean, if you're talking saying bad things about other people, that really, as has been observed, says more about you than the person you're bad mouthing. So if we're trying to create a society where men and women are equal and can genuinely respect each other, how does this contribute to this? I mean, a little bit of good-natured ribbing between men and women, I think, is healthy for society. Men and women both have, their quirks, their flaws, and pointing these things out. Yeah, I mean, that's just human nature. It's the way you act with your friends. You give your friends a hard time over their flaws too. And as long as it stays good natured, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a nice way to bond. And that's true for any group of people who have differences with other groups of people. A little good natured ribbing over certain things. As long as there's no maliciousness to it, that's fine. But just sort of seems like you're trying to basically say it's okay to call men dumb because yay feminism. I mean, seriously, aren't we as a society better than that, or isn't being better than that a goal for us? I don't know. I just don't think you really advance any sort of laudable goal in society by basically saying, hey, those people over there are dumb and we're not. I don't know. That's just one of those things that just really bugs the hell out of me. All right, guys, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, subscribe, and of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi, and please also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Until next time, take care and have a good one.